Hey everyone, and welcome to this critical training explainer for all of you newly awakened humans out there. Look, if you're tuning into this, you have probably just discovered some abilities you definitely didn't ask for. Suddenly, you're stepping into this crazy, vast world governed by ancient, incredibly powerful bureaucracies. Today, we're going to analyze the proposed Covenant of Uneasy Powers, which you might also hear called the Treaty of Balance. We're going to uncover the hidden loopholes that demonic forces are just desperately waiting to exploit, and we'll look at the very real, severe risks involved if you let your human powers get bound under angelic or Earthmaster control. This isn't just a history lesson, guys. Think of this as a survival guide for your own autonomy. Here is exactly what we're covering today. First, the human power crisis. Then we'll look at the conflicting factions, the risk to your human agency, breaking down the covenant itself, mapping out those demonic loopholes, and finally, how to defend your autonomy. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the human power crisis. So to really get why this council was convened in the first place, you have to picture the world before the first scatter. The ancient factions only had to deal with one human anomaly, Ilian Mar. He basically carried the entire burden of raw human power on his own shoulders. But then, the first scatter happened. Raw power started waking up across the globe in totally ordinary people. People like Selah Vorn, Bran Esther, Nadir Kel. They were just suddenly manifesting these insane abilities that had absolutely zero traceable lineage. It didn't come from an angelic choir or a magical crown or the Earth's roots. It just happened. And because this raw power no longer belongs to just one guy, the ancient factions are absolutely terrified. The angels are looking at this thinking humanity has just been handed a flame with no altar to contain it. The Earthmasters are terrified that the living Earth is going to get dragged into endless wars fueled by human grief. And the demons, the demonic crowns are just loving the confusion. They know that this kind of formless power operating without a strict set of laws is either going to be the absolute last defense of creation or just the easiest backdoor into total ruin. That sheer wild unpredictability is exactly what forced the Council of Uneasy Powers to meet beneath the quiet meridian. Okay, moving right along to Section 2, conflicting factions. To truly spot the cracks in this treaty, you've got to understand the totally different priorities of the supernatural bureaucrats trying to right the thing. Let's look at the fundamental divide in the room. On one side, you have the angels. We're talking figures like Sariel of the Sixth Watch and Achranil of the Fourth Dominion. What do they want? Order, containment, and strict supervision. Their absolute biggest nightmare is randomness. In fact, Sariel specifically argues that without structure, even human mercy just becomes a total accident, and courage turns into a dangerous explosion. Now, on the flip side, you've got the Earthmasters, folks like Orlean Meridian and Alira Vare, the Mistress of Seasons. They aren't obsessed with rigid laws like angels are. Instead, they prioritize natural balance. Their massive fear is lasting environmental damage. They're terrified that human grief will somehow get stuck in a single season forever and just poison the soil. If we try to look at this through the highly empathetic perspective of the Ninth Lanterns, those small angelic lights that just seek true discernment, it becomes super clear that neither of these factions really understands human agency. They only care about how you are going to mess up their specific domains. Orlean Meridian, the master of all natural power, actually hit the nail on the head with his brilliant analogy to explain the risk to his peers. He says, look, natural power behaves predictably, right? A river follows its carved course. A seed sprouts exactly how it's supposed to, based on the soil and the sun. But human power? That's a whole different ballgame. Human power can wake up on a random Tuesday and literally choose to become a blade. It's completely unpredictable because it has autonomy. Aurelian points out that natural power cannot govern humanity because of this core difference. And here's the kicker. That dangerous autonomy, that actual ability to make a choice, is the exact thing that makes human power meaningful. The angels hear this and think, great, that's just an excuse for total chaos. But the Earth Masters hear it as a very serious, profound warning. Which brings us nicely to Section 3, the risk to human agency. So, what happens to you if these ancient factions actually succeed in enforcing top-down control? Well, if human powers are bound under angelic or Earthmaster rules, specific, highly nuanced abilities face the very real risk of being outlawed before anyone even tries to understand them. Let's look at some actual case studies from the council floor. Take Nadir Kel. His power isn't loud or flashy. It is this profound, heavy silence that was born from a time when literally nobody believed him. His silence can essentially cancel the rhythm of other powers. It makes magic spells literally miss a beat. He just wants the world to realize that interruption can actually be a mercy. But to a bureaucracy that is totally obsessed with order, yeah, that looks like straight-up sabotage. Or think about Mira of the Broken Mirror. Her power reflects judgment, but without a judge. It basically acts as a mirror to the soul. It bounces back the hunger of demons, exposes the hidden pride of angels, and reveals the strangling control of the Earth Masters. Her power demands accountability, which obviously makes her incredibly dangerous to anyone trying to hide behind bureaucratic red tape. Then you've got Bran, whose power is this raw, stubborn, protective instinct. He's at risk of being chained up like a monster before he even gets a chance to learn how to use it. And Tomas? He's a clerk whose power tracks the karmic debts of these massive supernatural entities, and he risks being totally brushed aside. If these people are forced into a covenant without having a voice, their deeply personal powers just get flattened out and labeled as threats. Sela Vorn stood up in front of the entire council and dropped this absolute truth bomb. She reminds them, and she reminds us, that raw human power doesn't just appear in a vacuum. It wakes up when the world is pressing down too hard and absolutely no one is coming to help. It's born from injury, it's born from trauma. As she puts it, it arrives as a refusal to just disappear, a refusal to let some other power dictate the meaning of your pain. When Oraniel of the Angels had the nerve to wonder if they should just leave human injuries untreated so that power could keep forming, Sela completely shut him down. She laid it out plainly. Harvesting pain is literally how demons think. Healing past wounds is the only true way to stop demonic influence from taking root in an awakened human. If the council starts punishing those who have already suffered before they can even figure themselves out, they aren't guiding anyone. They're just piling onto the trauma. Now let's see how those anxieties got written into law in Section 4, breaking down the covenant. When Oraniel cracked open the sealed decree, it outlined what are undeniably the three most dangerous clauses for human freedom. Number 1, mandatory containment of raw-powered humans. Of course, they didn't call it a prison. They dressed it up as a covenant of containment. Number 2, forced submission. You'd have to submit to constant supervision by angels, earth masters, or an approved human guardian until your specific power could be officially named. And number 3, bureaucratic approval of those guardians. Guys, these clauses completely strip away your individual agency. Like Bran pointed out on the floor, it's basically a leash that they've polished up until it looks like a nice necklace. It's an attempt to categorize things that simply cannot be categorized. And that's when Ilian Mar spoke up and asked the single mic drop question: who approves the Guardians? The whole hall went totally dead silent. Why? Because that one question completely exposed the massive lack of accountability and fairness in the whole treaty. Think about it. If the angels approve the Guardians, humanity just becomes a tiny lower province of heaven, totally judged by how obedient we are to the light. If the Earth Masters do it, humans are only judged by our carbon footprint, basically, our effect on environmental balance, with zero regard for human dignity. If existing human kings do it, you awakened folks just become weapons of war. And if awakeners approve themselves with zero oversight, while you risk a bunch of super-powered little tyrants running around. Forcing awakeners to submit to external approval is just a blatant, massive overreach that completely destroys true accountability while pretending to enforce it. So, ultimately, the council had to recognize that a top-down approach just wasn't going to fly. The final Uneasy Covenant attempted to inject some level of fairness by establishing a circle of 3 witnesses for every single raw-powered human. You'd have 1 human witness chosen by the Awakener themselves, 1 representing the living Earth, and 1 from the Holy Hierarchy. The absolute key here is that no single faction could command human destiny alone. This covenant had to be signed by light, by soil, and by human blood. But, and this is a huge but, that blood had to be willingly given from a finger prick, not forcefully extracted from a wound. It was this massive, messy compromise that ensured human power wouldn't automatically be treated as a crime, and it secured Ilianmar's temporary stewardship over a human council where people could actually have their voices heard. But listen, even with those safeguards, this thing is full of holes. Let's look at Section 5, Demonic Loopholes.
Now, the demonic crowns definitely were not invited to this council, but they absolutely crashed the party anyway. If we look really closely at this, borrowing the pure discernment of those empathetic ninth lanterns I mentioned earlier, we can see exactly how demons operate. They don't attack with, giant flaming beasts or massive armies. That would be way too obvious. Instead, they are opportunistic predators. They sneak in as quiet suggestions, hiding right between the sentences. When Nadir Kel used his silence to literally pause the rhythm of the room, it revealed that demons don't enter through physical cracks in the stone. They enter through cracks in certainty. They exploit the deep internal fears that every single faction brought into that room, using the council's own anxieties to twist and manipulate the treaty's clauses. It's almost surgical how the demonic crowns manipulate people by whispering exactly what they are most afraid of. To the angels, who are terrified of randomness, the demons whisper, "You are totally right to fear them. Bind them right now and just call it mercy." They reframe literal tyranny as a holy duty. To the Earth Masters, who are terrified of environmental ruin, they whisper, "Root their power before it poisons the soil." Suddenly, executing someone feels like preventative maintenance. And to the humans in the room, like Bran and Ilian, they whisper to their pride, "Break the table, rebel, and build a human throne." You see what they're doing? The demons are trying to force a totally false choice on everyone. They're saying you either have to build a tyrannical cage and lock everyone up, or you have to embrace total destructive chaos. They feed on accusation, just hoping the council turns into a witch hunt looking for guilt, rather than a fellowship actually trying to understand each other. This philosophical clash really highlights a harsh truth about human autonomy. During the debate, Alira Veer stepped up and asked, "Well, what if we just do nothing?" And she showed them a vision where leaving humans entirely alone didn't lead to a utopia. It just led to different types of tyranny. Awakeners became warlords, or demons just slid right in as flattering little advisors. As Eileen Mars summed it up perfectly, binding humans who haven't done anything wrong is just bureaucratic cruelty, but abandoning them and calling it freedom, that is a literal feast for demons. The extreme need to lock everything down for protection and the total abandonment of all guidance both come from the exact same failure. It's a complete refusal to have a genuine relationship. Like Mira pointed out, true guidance has to be a two-way street. The guide has to be willing to be changed by the person they are guiding. Otherwise, it's not guidance. It's just a command hiding under a soft cloak. All right, bringing it home with Section 6, Defending Autonomy. The demonic attack on this council was only defeated when Ilian Mar and the rest of the humans chose freely offered restraint. Ilian literally placed his hands flat on the iron table, and instead of exploding with that raw power, or rebelling exactly like the demons were begging him to do, he just refused to perform for fear.
Sela sealed up the cracks of fear in the room. Bran grounded the rising panic. Nadir stopped the rhythm of those demonic whispers. And they actually worked alongside the Angel's Witness and the Earthmaster's patience. The demons totally understand violence and war, but they completely fell apart in the face of restraint freely chosen by people who had every single reason to rage. The council succeeded, even if just for a moment, because they acted in relation to one another without pretending they were all the same. They proved that true autonomy doesn't mean standing completely alone on an island. It means engaging in relationships without losing your distinct identity.
So, as we enter this age of uneasy powers together, you need to know that your raw abilities are going to make you a massive target for manipulation. Angels are going to want to order you, Earthmasters are going to want to balance you, and demons are going to try to exploit every wound you have. So I'm going to leave you with this one final thought to carry into your awakening. Are you going to let the bureaucratic fear of your trauma dictate what your limits are? Will you just accept that totally false choice between a cage and chaos? Or are you going to stand your ground, heal your wounds, and fiercely protect your own agency by defining your own meaning in relation to the world around you? The choice and the power is now entirely yours.